Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। श्री गीता ध्यानम्। ॐ पार्थाय प्रतिबोधितां भगवता नारायणेन स्वयं व्यासेन ग्रथितां पुराणमुनिना मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणीं भगवतीम् अष्टादशाध्यायिनीम् अम्ब त्वामनुसन्दधामि भगवद्गीते भवद्वेषिणी। नमोऽस्तु ते व्यासविशालबुद्धे पुल्लारविन्दायतपत्रनेत्रा येन त्वया भारततैलपूर्णः प्रज्वालितो ज्ञानमयप्रदीपः प्रपन्नपारिजाताय स्तोत्रवेत्रैकपाणये ज्ञानमुद्राय कृष्णाय गीतामृतदुहे नमः। सर्वोपनिषदो गावो दोग्धा गोपालनन्दनः पार्थो वत्सः सुधीर्भोक्ता दुग्धं गीतामृतं महत्। वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुं। भीष्मद्रोणतटा जयद्रथजला गान्धारनीलोत्पला शल्यग्राहवती कृपेण वहनी कर्णेन वेलाकुला। अश्वत्थामविकर्णघोरमकरा दुर्योधनावर्तिनी सोतीर्णा खलु पाण्डवैरननदी कैवर्तक केशवः। पाराशर्यवचः सरोजममलं गीतार्थगन्धोत्कटं नानाख्यानककेसरं हरिकथा सम्बोधनाबोधितम्। लोके सज्जनषट्करैरहरः पीपीयमानं मुदा भूयाद्भारतपङ्कजं कलिमल प्रध्वंसिन श्रेयसे। मूकं करोति वाचालं पङ्गुं लङ्घयति गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे परमानन्दमाधवम्। यं ब्रह्मा वरुणेन्द्ररुद्रमरुतः स्तुन्वन्ति दिव्यैस्तवैः देवै साङ्गपदक्रमोपनिषदैर्गायन्ति यं सामगाः। ध्यानावस्थिततद्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यं योगिनो यस्यान्तं न विदुः सुरासुरगणा देवाय तस्मै नमः। देवाय तस्मै नमः। देवाय तस्मै नमः।
Hari Om. So a couple of clarifications, from last time's satsang, which was basically my responses to questions. One was a really nice question by Amrita about, whether we'll have to let go of Sri Krishna also, as we progress. Some of my statements possibly true, but I felt later on that either were maybe too strong or too rigid. So that's why I thought, I would like to clarify this. Firstly, I want to say Sri Krishna with extreme compassion will drop us to our destination, whatever that destination may be. The right guru, whoever the guru is, the right guru is duty bound to personally escort the Shishya to the next step in the ladder of spiritual progress. And this is the guru's duty. And then after escorting the Shishya to the ladder, to the next step in the ladder of spiritual progress, either leave the Shishya there or continue to be with the Shishya and guide him in that next step. But that duty or that onus is that of the guru. We do not have to let go or leave the guru. The guru will do what is right, what is correct for the Shishya. Now, if the guru is not the right guru, if the guru is a false guru, so to say, then it is up to the Shishya, the onus is on the student to be smart enough to realize and to understand. And then to find a way which works for the progress of the student or one's own progress. And the student should be smart enough to be able to understand whether this guru is indeed that kind of a guru who will take you to the next step or to the destination and either be with you or leave you there. So Sri Krishna will definitely take us to our destination, deposit us in the lap of Bhagwan and probably be with us or go about doing his avatara related duties, whatever it may be. The second point that I wanted to clarify was that, I do not want to come across as kind of anti-modern day gurus, or something like that. It's not like I'm against the modern day gurus or what they do, or that I don't see the value of what they do. They definitely add a lot of value at a level of spiritual pursuit. Fundamentally, the fact that they are guiding humanity towards the right direction. See, I gave the example of, going to Switzerland to ski or Howley to ski or to, Las Vegas to play or whatever, right? Compared to that, guiding much better direction in terms of, a much better spiritual direction in terms of where these gurus are taking us. So there's no debate about that, right? And guiding the humanity in the right direction, helping the humanity follow the right pursuits, propagating things that are good for this creation of Bhagwan, the planet Earth, helping to make the planet Earth a better place to live in. All that is extremely, extremely commendable. And actually also no harm in marketing, because today's world understands marketing. So marketing, there's nothing wrong in marketing. But again, I think it's up to a student to understand, up to the guru first to take the student beyond whenever and as required, and up to the student to understand when that is not happening and take necessary steps that are required. And that is true for any facet of life, right? So, for example, if you have an ailment of the heart and you go to the brain doctor, then there's some problem, right? So you have to know what ailment you have and then go seek the right doctor. Within that field of operation, find someone who is, very knowledgeable and also conducive to specifically what treatment that you need to get. And then also monitor it, saying that the treatment that the doctor is giving me, what I'm going through, am I following it properly? And number two, is it helping me or not? And take necessary steps to make sure that it is helpful. Similarly, in any pursuit, including spirituality. So that's the clarification, two clarifications I wanted to make based on last time's question and answer session of our satsang. Now, after having brought out 20 disciplines and virtues that are a must, that are absolutely required to be able to comprehend the Kshetrajna, Bhagavan says that this is knowledge. And he will now tell us that which has to be understood using that knowledge. With that kind of a knowledge, after having acquired that kind of a knowledge, what has to be understood? Having that jnanam, the jnayam that has to be acquired is what Bhagavan will tell us now. Like I said the last time, to continue from that example, to see what is under a microscope or to see through a telescope, one must fine-tune that equipment. It's very important. Otherwise, it will all be hazy. And having a hazy vision, which is not fine-tuned, is not going to give us a very clear view of what we are observing or what we are analyzing, what we are studying. And not having a very clear view of what we are observing, analyzing, studying will then result in us not making progress in the field of study that we are involved in. Similarly, fine-tuning our mind and intellect is a must for us to be able to understand the Kshetra. First of all, understand the Kshetram and then understand the Kshetrajna. Without that kind of a fine-tuning, we will not be able to understand the Kshetrajna. These 20 qualities are those that fine-tune our mind-intellect equipment. Like the telescope or a microscope is required to observe, like a scanner is required to see inside the body. Similarly, the mind and intellect is required to be able to observe, understand, comprehend, and know the Kshetrajna. Similarly, the telescope has to behave well also. It has to point in the right direction. What I mean by behave well is, if it doesn't work, if it doesn't, if there is a power, some of these big telescopes, see, when we normally use the word telescope, we are thinking of something that we can put in our balcony and look at stars. When you actually are in the field of astronomy and you are observing the universe, these are mammoth equipments. There are multiple parts to that equipment. It's not just the eyepiece and the eyepiece and the vision glass. What is it called? I'm forgetting. And the focus light and all that. There are too many other equipments which are involved: mechanical, electrical, so on and so forth. All of them have to work well together. In the same manner, our mind intellect has to behave well and also has to point in the right direction. In the right direction in terms of spirituality, for us to be able to understand the Kshetrajna. And Bhagavan also refers to all 20 of these qualities as singular, as etad. This means that all of them together have to perform, have to be there in unison, always at every point in time, throughout. Again, just like all instruments that combine to make this telescope function, the scientific observation happen, whatever kind of scientific observation it may be, space exploration to brain surgery, whatever it may be. All of that has to work in unison to make it happen. Similarly, the 20 qualities are the ones that will help, and all of them have to work together at the same time to be able to, and all at once, to be able to help us observe, understand, comprehend the Kshetrajna. And what is to be understood with this jnana? What is this jnayam? What is this Kshetrajna? That Bhagavan touches upon in verses 12 to 17. Let us see that.
Niyam yattat pravakshyami.
Niyam yattat pravakshami.
Yajñātvāmritam ashnute.
Yajñātvāmritam ashnute.
Anādimat param brahma.
Anādimat param brahma.
Nasattanna saduchyate.
Nasattanna saduchyate.
Niyam yattat pravakshyami. Yajñātvāmritam ashnute. Anādimat param brahma. Nasattanna saduchyate.
Now, this verse actually has a couple of interpretations. If you read different books, you will see interpretations that differ from each other, sometimes may be confusing. And these interpretations differ based on the school of thought. And school of thoughts are pretty rigid and pretty firm. So any school of thought you will listen to will define this interpretation in a very, very firm manner. So we have to be careful and we have to make sense of what we are hearing and listening. The phrase of contention being Anadi Mat Param Brahma. The word Mat is normally not used on its own, but it is said to be connected to me. You know, like when Bhagavan says Mat, that Bhagavan is saying connected to with me as, holding me, and so on and so forth. So in one version, this word Mat is suffixed to Anadi. So the word reads Anadimat, Anadimat. And the verse reads Anadimat Param Brahma. Anadimat means holding me as beginningless. Anadi, beginningless. Anadimat, holding me as beginningless. And then Anadimat Param Brahma would mean holding me or with me, the beginningless, as Supreme Brahman. I am the beginningless Supreme Brahman. The second version, the word Mat is prefixed to Param. So then it becomes Mat Param, holding me as the Supreme. See, Bhagavan has used this earlier also. There are a few examples where he has said Mat Param. For example, in verse 14 of chapter 6, he said, Manasamyamya matchittaha yukta asita matparaha. So Manasamyamya, the mind fully controlled. Matchittaha, the mind engrossed in me, completely focused on me. Yukta asita, steady, harmonized. Yukta, harmonized, asita, steady. Matparaha, with me as the supreme goal. Then again in the last verse of chapter 9, Bhagavan had said, Mam evaishyasi yuktvaivam atmanam matparayanaha. So Mam evaishyasi, you shall come to me alone. To me alone you shall come. Yukta, being equipped, being the steadfast. Yuktvaivam, being so steadfast. Atmanam matparayanaha, the entire self taking me as the supreme goal. And then when we went through our sadhanas and we said that these are the sadhanas for the Bhagavad Gita, right? There Bhagavan had said Mat Paramaha, 55th verse of chapter 11. So he has used this a few times, Mat Param. In that sense, Mat Param is very familiar. Also grammatically, it is very easy to use. Whereas Anadimat is a little bit unusual. But still, you know, you'll find people using both in a fairly rigid manner. So Mat Param, holding me as supreme. And then Anadi Mat Param Brahma. Then that means the beginningless Brahman holding me as the supreme. So in the first case, the beginningless supreme Brahman is one. In this case, the beginningless Brahman holding me as supreme, which means the beginningless Brahman is treated as a separate entity to me, Bhagavan. So that is the contention. So whether the beginningless supreme Brahman is the same as Bhagavan, or whether the beginningless supreme Brahman is different from Bhagavan and holds Bhagavan as supreme. Okay, so now with that clarification, so that when you hear different versions, you are not confused. I personally believe that these arguments are not conducive to spiritual growth. Okay, they just become arguments at the end of the day. And again, Bhagavan has said, leave the ego aside, right? So at this point in time, we starting to discuss Bhagavan's ego doesn't make sense at all, right? So this verse is very simple reassurance from Bhagavan. Why complicate it with these arguments? So the reassurance is like this. He says, I shall declare, pravakshami, tat yat yeyam, that which is ought to be known. Yad nyatva, which one who knows. Nyatva, the person who knows yaj, which, ashnute amritam, attains immortality. So this is what we should all, as spiritual seekers, focus upon. I shall declare, Bhagavan will declare, okay? that which is ought to be known. He has not yet started declaring. So he is going to declare. Which after knowing, one attains, one who knows, attains immortality. So whichever way, Anadi Mat Param Brahma, Anadi Mat Param Brahma, Anadi Mat Param Brahma, whichever way you want to take it. Okay. It really doesn't matter if the beginningless holds the Kshetrajna supreme or the surely beginningless is the Kshetrajna itself. He is going to declare, no. He is going to pravakshami. Prakarshena vakshami. He is going to declare it very, very clearly to us for us to be able to understand. We just have to simply listen and follow. And then Bhagavan says, Na sat tannasad uchyate. Uchyate means is called. Na sat tannasad. Na, neither, sat, being, tannasad, nor non-being. This is called neither being nor non-being. This Kshetra. Sat is that which is known, which can be explained in a particular manner. Asat is that which cannot be comprehended, which cannot be explained in a concrete manner. The Supreme, Bhagavan says, cannot be described as is, nor can it be described as is not. Neither is it Sat, nor is it Asat. So this is a very, very interesting, this is something that we should contemplate upon. And one beautiful example that I came across is this. If a tree falls in a forest and there is no one around to hear the sound or see the tree falling, then did the tree actually fall? Did the sound actually come? Does the sound actually exist at all or not? Meaning, what are we trying to say? Can something exist without being perceived by consciousness? Or at a micro level, can something even exist without me having seen it? See, oftentimes I say I like when people switch on the video because I'm able to see you. Otherwise, I don't know if you're there or not there. Or I feel as if I'm talking to a laptop, right? Or an iPad in my case, right? So, can something even exist if it is not perceived by consciousness? Meaning, is the sound really there only when someone hears it? And if someone doesn't hear it, there is no sound. If no one is there to hear the sound, to touch the tree, to feel the smell from the tree, to see a fruit from the tree, does it even exist? Do we know? So George Berkeley, he developed a metaphysical theory in 18th century itself, by the way, long back. And that theory is coined famously as to be is to be perceived. Meaning, if it is not perceived, it's not there. Today's metaphysics are split on this point. There are two theories. According to the substance theory, a substance is distinct from its properties, which means whether we can see it, feel it, perceive it, smell it, taste it, whether we can do it or not, the substance does exist. It is distinct. And according to the bundle theory, an object is merely its sense data. An object is there only if it can be sensually perceived. And Bhagavan says, the Brahman is neither something nor nothing. The manifest aspect of Brahman, the Saguna Brahman, right? We read about that, correct? With the three gunas is Sat. And the unmanifest form of Saguna Brahman, where the three gunas disappear, is Asat. But the Nirguna Brahman, there are no modifications. There is no Sat, there is no Asat. Nothing. No modifications of any kind. It is neither manifest nor unmanifest. Neither Sat nor Asat. And Bhagavan now describes this all-pervading self-consciousness principle, which is neither a being nor a non-being, in the next 5 verses. And how beautifully he describes that. In the next verse, he will explain this from a point of view of Vyavaharika. Vyavaharika means in terms of transactions, Vyavahara. Like what we are having is Vyavahara, right? There is a transaction that's going on. Like, you know, the famous transactional analysis, right? So there is a transaction that is going on. So based on transactions, he describes the nature of the Kshetrajna. in the next verse.
Sarvata panipadam tat
Sarvata panipadam tat
sarvato shishiromukham
sarvatokshishiro mukham
sarvata shrutimaloke
sarvata shrutimaloke
sarvamavritya tishtati
sarvamavritya tishtati
sarvata panipadam tat sarvato shishiromukham sarvata shrutimaloke sarvamavritya tishtati.
tat. Tat, that Kshetrajna, referring to that Kshetrajna. Tat, tishtati, exists. Avritya sarvam, enveloping all. Avritya, enveloping sarvam all. Loke, in this world. Shrutimat sarvataha, with ears everywhere. Shrutimat, ears. Shrutimat, with ears. Sarvataha, all over, everywhere. Pani padam sarvataha, with hands and feet everywhere. Pani, hands, padam, feet. Sarvatokshi shiro mukham, with sarvatokshi akshaha, eyes. Shiraha, head. Mukham, mouth, with eyes, head and mouth everywhere. Sarvatraha. So that Kshetrajna exists, enveloping all in this world, with eyes with ears everywhere, hands and feet everywhere, eyes, heads and mouth everywhere. This explanation of the Kshetrajna is Vyavaharika Samashti. Vyavaharika, transactional, Samashti, macrocosm, at the macro level, macrocosm level. That which is neither is nor is not. Okay, something that is neither is nor is not is described in terms of what is and what is not, as all-encompassing and omnipresent. The best possible way to describe something that is all-pervading. How do you do that? Okay, something that is neither is nor is not. You associate it with something that can be comprehended in the context of the universe. And that is how Bhagavan does it. He puts it together in terms of what we have. Our eyes, our ears, our hands, our feet, our mouths, our faces, and so on, right? And he says, this Kshetrajna has all this everywhere. So whatever you see is Bhagavan, what we said in the Vibhuti, right? Anything and everything that you see, that's what in simple terms this means. In the next verse, Bhagavan describes the Kshetrajna at the transactional level as well as the absolute level. Vyavaharika Drishti and Paramarthika Drishti, both. And these two are being described at the microcosm, at the individual level, at the Vyashti level. That is in the next verse.
Sarvendriya gunabhasam
Sarvendriya gunabhasam
Sarvendriya vivarjitam
Sarvendriya vivarjitam
Asaktam sarvabhrichaiva
Asaktam sarvabhrichaiva
Nirgunam gunabhuktracha
Nirgunam gunabhoktracha
Sarvendriya gunabhasam Sarvendriya vivarjitam Asaktam sarvabhrichaiva Nirgunam gunabhuktracha.
Sarvendriya gunabhasham, appearing to be having functions of the senses. Sarvendriya, all indriya, all the indriya. Guna bhasham, the appearing to have the functions, the bhasha of all the gunas. Sarvendriya vivarjitam, in reality, free from all of these sense functions. So while at the Vyavaharika level, transactional level, it appears to have the gunas of the indriyas, but in reality, At the transactional level, at the Vyavaharika level, it appears to see, it appears to hear, it appears to smell. But at the absolute level, it is free from all kinds of doership and enjoyership. See, the sunlight, while it apparently contains the hues of all forms, right? Hues and forms of everything. Suddenly you'll see the sunlight as a rainbow. Sometimes you'll see it when it's passing through the glass, it will see it as colored light, right? Sometimes it will be wavy when you see it reflecting on a medium, right? But by itself, the sunlight does not have any color or form. It can't even be called white light. Similarly, while it appears to have the gunas of the indriyas, this kshetragya is vivarjitam. It does not have, it's free of all the sense functions. Asaktam sarva bhrit. Asaktam, it is untouched, unattached. Yet sarva bhrit, supporting all. So it is the substratum of everything, sentient as well as insentient, at the transactional level. But at the absolute level, it is untouched by what it is supporting. By all that goes on in the creation, in the kshetra, it is untouched. The kshetragya is untouched by whatever goes on in the kshetra. It's like a cinema screen. So in the cinema screen, when you're watching a movie, there is a plethora of actions that are taking place. But the screen itself is untouched by whatever is happening. There may be a bomb that bursts, that blasts on the screen, but the screen is not blown into smithereens. The screen is just there. And once the cinema is over, the screen is still there as it is, as it was. In the same way, the kshetragyam is asaktam. It is completely untouched and unattached with whatever is going on in what it supports. Sarva bhrit. Nirgunam guna bhoktri. Nirgunam, devoid of gunas. Guna bhoktri, yet appearing to be the experiencer of gunas. The moods and the influences under which the human mind and intellect acts, all these moods that are there, the inherent tendencies that we have, other influences that trigger response and reaction from us, these are called the gunas. What the human mind and intellect, the moods that we exhibit, with which we behave. The sattva guna or inactivity, rajas guna or activity, and the tamas guna or inactivity. The consciousness, which is conditioned by the mind and intellect, is the experiencer of the gunas. It's the bhoktri. Bhoktri means the one that experiences the gunas. Unconditioned by the mind intellect, it is the absolute. It is the nirgunam. And in the next two verses, Bhagavan explains the adhisthana or the substratum. We will go one by one. First, verse 50.
Bahirantascha bhutanam.
Bahirantascha bhutanam.
Acharam charamiva cha.
Acharam charameva cha.
Sukshmatva tada vigneyam.
Sukshmatvat tada vigneyam.
Dhurastam chantike chatat.
Durastam chantike chatat.
Bahirantascha bhutanam. Acharam charamiva cha. Sukshmatva tada vigneyam. Dhurastam chantike chatat.
Tad, again, tad, that, bahihi, bahir, without, and cha, antascha, within, antaha, within, bhutanam, all beings and objects, that which is without and within all objects and beings. Acharam, the unmoving, and yet charam, the moving. Okay, that's I just followed the sequence. Acharam charam evacha. Acharam and yet moving. Charam. Avijneyam cannot be cognized, cannot be comprehended. Sukshmatvat, due to its, because it is sukshma, subtle, and sukshmatvat, extreme subtleness, extremely subtle, and because of that, it is avijneyam, cannot be cognized. And cha, tat, that, durastham, far away, and cha, antike, is very near. That which is without and within all objects and beings, the unmoving and yet moving, cannot be cognized or comprehended due to its extreme subtleness. And that which is far away and very near. Bhuta. So, bhutanam, bhuta. Bhuta is that which has the property of becoming. Anything that can become something. Bhuta, being. Bhavana dharma. And this implies to all objects and beings. The reason this needs to be specified is because otherwise bhutanam will mean only beings. But here it refers to everything, anything that can become an object or a being, that can have a bhavana dharma. And then Bhagavan says that it is without and within. Bahir antascha, like a block of ice that is submerged in water. So when we put a block of ice inside a glass of water, what happens? That ice has water inside it, and the ice is surrounded by water all through, which means it is within it and without it. It has water. Similarly, space is within and without. There is space within this room where I am sitting. This room is within space. It is the same space. We think there is space within this room, but space is within and without, both ways. Similarly, the Paramatman is all pervading and undivided by things which are manifest, the beings and objects. The beings and objects that have this bhavana dharma, that cannot divide the Paramatman. As much as the space cannot be divided by the chair, the table, the iPad, the wire that is there, the people that are here, it cannot be divided. Similarly, the Paramatman cannot be divided by Bhutana. And then Bhagavan says, Acharam charam evacha. See, Acharam charam evacha, ocean is a beautiful example. Ocean on the surface is turbulent, it is wavy, it is moving all the time. But you go deeper inside the ocean, it is absolutely still. Completely, simply still. Sometimes, like Sri Krishna in the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita, okay, appearing to be very turbulent outside, but deep inside very calm and collected. Similarly, people in high intensity action appear to be very turbulent outside, but are actually calm and collected. If you are in a war zone, you appear, you are doing the dhava, okay? But if you do dhava with turbulence inside, in all likelihood, you will get the dhava upon yourself. So for you to be extremely turbulent outside, there has to be extreme stillness inside. That is very, very important. Just like the ocean. Superficially turbulent, calm within. Same thing with the Paramatman. There is movement modified as shown by Prakriti. But Nirguna Brahman, absolute stillness. And then Bhagavan says, Sukshmatvat tad avijneyam, cannot be cognized, cannot be comprehended because of subtlety, because of its extreme subtlety. It's like this water. When water becomes vapor, sometimes you can see the vapor. But oftentimes, the bowl of water is lying here, or you're sitting by the beach next to the ocean. The water vapors are going all the time, 24/7. But do you see it? Why don't you see it? Because it is extremely subtle. Absolutely subtle, cannot be cognized. In the same way, Nirguna Brahman remains incomprehensible to a mind that is not purified. A mind that is purified is able to see. Like we can have our tools and equipment to be able to see this water vapor. Similarly, and what do you mean by mind that is purified? Again, it doesn't mean some kind of a class distribution. A mind that is purified, chitta shuddhi, is nothing but removal of disturbances in the mind. Why? A mind that is devoid of disturbances is calm enough to see this Nirguna Brahman, which is extremely subtle otherwise and cannot be comprehended. To the ignorant, God is distant. So Bhagavan says, Durastham Chantike Chatat. To the ignorant, God is distant, or maybe God is not even there. I don't believe in God. He's not there, right? To the ignorant. But to the one who is knowing, to the one who understands, to the one who believes, to the one who has this bhakti, that person carries divinity within. How closer can that person be to God than when he's carrying that divinity within? So far, yet extremely near. And then Bhagavan continues.
Avibhaktam cha bhuteshu
Avibhaktam cha bhuteshu
vibhaktamiva cha sthitam
vibhaktamiva cha sthitham
bhuta bhartri cha tadnyeyam
bhuta bhartri cha tatnyeyam
grasishnu prabha vishnu cha
Rasishnu Prabha Vishnu cha
avibhaktam cha bhuteshu vibhaktamiva cha sthitam bhuta bhartri cha tadnyeyam grasishnu prabha vishnu cha.
So Bhagavan is continuing to describe the substratum. So he says, and cha avibhaktam, undivided, sthitam, existing, eva, as if, vibhaktam, divided, and undivided and existing as if divided, and cha tad, that, nyeyam, which is to be known, bhuta bhartru, bhuta bhartru, the supporter of all being and objects, grasishnu, devouring, cha, and prabha Vishnu, generating, and undivided yet existing as if divided among beings, like the space example that we talked about, right? And that which is known to be as the supporter, or known as the supporter of all beings and objects, all elements, anything that is part of creation, it devours them and it generates them. See, electricity is all around us as charge, and then it can be, what's the word I'm looking for? It can be harnessed into a bulb. It can be harnessed into a bulb. It pervades, but then it gets conditioned into the bulb. And when it gets conditioned into the bulb, it manifests as light. Similarly, the Paramatman is all pervading and yet manifests in the elements as their very life, as the very light of that bulb. The light of the bulb is the life of the bulb. If there is no light in the bulb, there is no life in the bulb. So just like electricity manifests while it is all around us, is manifests as the life of the bulb, Paramatman is all around, but manifests in elements as the very life of the elements, conditioned by their limitations. So if it is a wooden chair, it cannot move anywhere. If it is a stone, it just lies around there, but stone also evolves. It takes longer to evolve. If it is a plant, it is rooted. It can probably sway in the wind, but by itself, it cannot take steps and go from one place and go to some other place. If it is an animal, it can move around, but it cannot speak like we are speaking. Maybe it can bark, maybe it can neigh, maybe it can howl, but it cannot speak. So depending on the limitation of the element, the life shines through from that very element. And even within human beings, depending on the limitation of the human beings, this Paramatman shines through in different ways. And what is most apparent? Based on that Ananya Bhakti, that single-pointed devotion towards whatever we consider as the higher ideal, it manifests in terms of that life-shining element in that human being. Then Bhagavan says, that which is known to be or is known as the supporter of all beings and objects. Okay, that is the second thing that he talks about. Tadnyeyam bhuta bhartrucha. The earth, it creates all the plants. It supports them, and then the plant dies into the earth. In fact, we say that for ourselves also, right? The wave is born in the ocean, dies into the ocean. And while it is existing, the ocean is supporting the wave. Clouds are formed in the sky, disappear into the sky. While they are there, the sky holds them. Our dreams are projected in our minds, and then they dissolve into our minds when we wake up, disappear into our minds when we wake up. In the same manner, the superconsciousness is omnipotent, omnipresent substratum. It is that kind of a substratum which is omnipotent and omnipresent, on which the entire universe appears, is held, by which it is upheld, supported, and then into which the entire universe disappears. Bhagavan had said that all this has been stated divisively. I just thought, I'll pick some example from somewhere. Actually, my Guruji helped this, right? In our scriptures. And it had also been sung by the rishis. So one example of that is that in Kaivalyopanishad, the student is Asvalayana, who himself is a great rishi, and he's a teacher, supposed to be a very good teacher of the Rig Veda. And his teacher in Kaivalyopanishad is Lord Brahma himself. And it is during this Upanishad that Rishi Asvalayana is supposed to have attained permanent liberation, moksha. And in that, it is said in the Upanishad, Mayeva sakalam jatam, Mai sarvam pratishtitam, Mai sarvam nayam yati, Tad brahmadvyam asyaham, Tad brahmadvyam asyaham. So, Bhagavan says in Kaivalya Upanishad, the entire creation is born of me. The entire creation and everything in this entire creation have their being in me. The entire creation and everything in it is ultimately resolved into me. I am that Brahman, which is the one, without a second one, which is all-inclusive, all-pervasive. Mayeva sakalam jatam, Mai sarvam pratishtitam, Mai sarvam layam yati, Tad brahmadvayam asyaham. So, Bhagavan says, Tad nyeyam, that Paramatma, that Kshetrajna, is to be known by the mind that has been prepared by the 20 disciplines. And continuing in the next verse.
Jyotishamapi tad jyotihi,
Jyotishamapi tad jyotihi,
Tamasa paramuchyate,
Tamasa paramuchyate,
Jnanam jneyam jnanagamyam,
Jnanam jneyam jnanagamyam,
Hridi sarvasya vishtitam,
Hridi sarvasya vishtitam,
Jyotishamapi tad jyotihi, Tamasa paramuchyate, Jnanam jneyam jnanagamyam, Hridi sarvasya vishtitam.
Again, tad, that, jyotihi, light, jyotishamapi, of all lights, uchyate, is said, param, beyond, tamasaha, darkness or ignorance. Tamasaha, dark, can be interpreted as darkness and ignorance here. Jnanam, knowledge, jneyam, the knowable, that which ought to be known. Jnanagamyam, the goal of knowledge. Vishtitam is seated. Hridi, in the heart. Sarvasya, of all. That light of all lights, which is said to be beyond, not which is said to be, is said to be beyond all darkness, beyond all ignorance. The knowledge, the knowable, the goal of knowledge, seated in the hearts of all. That is the Kshetrajna. See, scientifically, the sun and the stars are self-luminous, whereas the moon reflects the light of the sun. Okay, sunlight also reveals everything, but the sunlight itself is self-luminous. Sun itself is self-luminous. Modern science, at the same time, has also shown, as much as our scriptures have known long back, much before modern science, but modern science has shown, proven that this is not for long. Stars do die. So during Pralaya, the sun also loses its luminosity. The sun also dies. The light goes out of the sun. And also to continue our earlier metaphysical discussion that we had, right? Okay, the sun, while it is existing before Pralaya, is self-luminous. And not only is it self-luminous, it illumines the moon. The sunlight illumines everything that we see. But it is actually, from a metaphysical point of view, it is the eye that illumines the sun. Because if the eye can't see the sun, there is no sun. As per our earlier discussion, right? So, and the eye itself is illumined by the mind. Because the eye may see, but if the mind doesn't comprehend, then the eye doesn't see. And the mind intellect is then illumined by the consciousness. The consciousness is the ultimate self-illuminator. And there is a beautiful example that shows this. In pitch darkness, I will not be able to see my hand. I will not be able to see my feet. I will not be able to see my shirt. I will not be able to see my nose. But can I see myself? Do I know who I am? That self is cognizable, even in pitch darkness, when the eye faculty is not working. Let us say we are in pitch darkness, there is absolutely no smell, no feeling, no air to feel, nothing. None of the five senses are feeling, seeing, doing anything which they are supposed to do, right? But still, I am able to cognize that I am standing in that pitch darkness. My eyes are not seeing, my nose is not smelling, my skin is not touching. That cognizance is there. That self-cognizance, that identification of our own presence. And this self-cognizance is not improved by sunlight. Suddenly there is light, tube light or sunlight or whatever it may be. It doesn't change. It remains the same. It doesn't undergo any improvement by itself. This self-awareness is self-evident. And this self-consciousness, which is self-awareness, which is self-evident, comes from the pure consciousness or Atman. It is the power of the Atman that gives us this cognizance. The body perceives, the mind feels, the intellect thinks, because of this power, because of this light of the Atman. This is at my individual level. At the super level, at the cosmic level, at the universal level, the super consciousness, the same Atman, at that universal level is the light of all lights. Bhagavan says, Do Jyotisham api tad jyotihi, the light of all lights, the luminary of all illuminaries. And this super consciousness is also that knowledge. What knowledge? That knowledge. What that knowledge? The 20 disciplines that we learned. Or jnana. This super consciousness is also that jnayam, what is to be known, the Kshetrajna. And Bhagavan adds one more thing. He says, the jnana gamyam, the goal of knowledge. And he says, it is seated in the hearts of all. And what is this goal of knowledge? Let's see in the next verse.
Iti kshetram tata jnanam.
Iti kshetram tata jnanam.
ज्ञेयं चोक्तं समासतः
येयं चोक्तं समासतः
मद्भक्ता एतद्विज्ञाय
मद्भक्ता एतद्विज्ञाय
मद्भावायोपपद्यते
मद्भावायोपपद्यते
इति क्षेत्रं तथा ज्ञानं ज्ञेयं चोक्तं समासतः मद्भक्त एतद्विज्ञाय मद्भावायोपपद्यते.
So Bhagavan says, or rather he concludes, iti, thus, kshetram, the field, tatha, as well as, jnanam, knowledge, cha, and jneyam, the knowable, uktam, has been stated, samasataha, briefly. Remember, he said, I am going to tell you briefly, it is covered in detail in our scriptures. But this brief is comprehensive. And then he says, Vijnaya, knowing or understanding, etad, this, Madbhakta, my devotee, Upapadyate, attains, Madbhava, to my nature. Thus, the field, as well as the knowledge and the knowable, has been stated briefly. Understanding this, my devotee attains to my nature. See, we attain whatever state we direct our attention to. And if it is single-pointed attention, we definitely attain it. Whether it be a state of success in an examination, whether it be the state of winning a competition or a tournament, whether it be the state of attaining a promotion, or the state of securing someone else's love and affection, whatever it may be, or it be the state of setting foot on the moon, or it be the state of flying around in space, or it be the state of diving into a human being's brain and wiring up the brain, or it being state of diving into the heart of a human being and controlling the pace of the heart, whatever it may be, with single-pointed pursuit, it has been seen, shown, demonstrated enough times that the human beings attained. Bhagwan's devotee, this Mad Bhakta, he has single-pointed devotion towards him, Ananya Bhakti. And with this Bhakti, Bhagavan says, he gets true understanding of Bhagwan's nature. Which is what? The true understanding of what nature? The light of all lights. That true understanding he gets. And by getting this true understanding of this nature, Bhagavan concludes by stating that this devotee of his can thus attain his own nature, be the light of all lights, one who illumines, one who has the halo that we see, behind the head. Thank you. Hari Om. Shri Krishna.
We'll repeat the verses we did today. Chapter 13, verse 12 to 18. Niyam yattachya vakshyami yajñātvāmritamashruते anādimat param brahma na sattanna saduchyate sarvata pānipadam tat sarvato shishirumukham sarvata shrutimaloke sarvamavritya tishtati sarvendriyagunābhāsam sarvendriyavivarjitam asaktam sarvavrichaiva nirgunam gunabhoktra ca bahirantasya bhutanam acharam charamiva ca sukshmatpātada vigneyam dhurastam chanti ca tat avibhaktam ca bhuteshu vibhaktamiva ca sthitam bhutavadra ca tajñeyam Vishnu Prabha Vishnu cha Jyotishamapi tajyotihi tamasa paramuchyate jnanam jneyam jnanagamyam hridi sarvasya vishritam iti kshetram tata jnanam Niyam chuktam samasataha madbhakta eta vijnana madbhakta etat vijnaya madbhavayupapadyate. Om asato ma satgamaya tamaso ma jyotirgamaya mrityurma amritam gamaya. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.
Hari Om. Any thoughts? Any thoughts or comments? So we have covered up till verse 18. So I think we'll need two more satsang to finish this chapter. After this chapter, if things go well, I'm just praying, my father's health and all is stable and everything goes well. My plan is to take, to go on one trek, which means I may miss one Saturday. Worst case two, but I don't think that'll happen. But there's one trek I'm going to do in the Himalayas, this time in Sikkim. So that will be the next 2 weeks. After that, I'll probably take a break for one Saturday. I also have to coordinate with Sarika to see if she's planning something. She's also one like me who the hills keep calling.
Shagra is just asking you, Gochala.
Yeah, Gochala, don't Zongri Gochala. Zongri Gochala. That's what I'm going to do.
Perfect. Yeah. It's a good one, Srini.
Yeah, it's a beautiful trek. Kanchenjunga. Any thoughts, comments, questions on this? Otherwise, okay, if nothing, then let's say Hari Om. We'll have some extra time today. Good time. Thank you all. Have a good weekend. Hari Om. We'll see you next Saturday. Hari Om.